Today on the Ask BP podcast, we're talking about what is the step-by-step process for buying a 10-unit property. Stay tuned.
You're listening to another BiggerPockets Ask BP podcast, where you'll hear short, direct answers to your biggest real estate questions. Submit your question today on Facebook, Twitter, or the BiggerPockets forums by using hashtag AskBP. And don't forget to pick up your copy of the Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing and other great content when you sign up for your free account at BiggerPockets.com. With that, let's get to the show.
Hey, what is going on, everyone? My name is Brandon here with the Ask BP podcast, and today we're coming at you live from well, maybe not live, but I'm in Denver right now, and I'm traveling around the country still. I think if you've been watching the other Ask BP episodes, I've been kind of all over the place. Left Seattle, went out all the way to the East Coast and down, and now I'm in Denver tonight. I was actually hanging out at Josh Dorkin's house, CEO of BiggerPockets, and that was kind of a blast. And now I'm here talking to you, and today's topic is about multifamily properties. Brian from Brooklyn, New York actually asked this question and said, basically, what is the step-by-step process for me to buy a 10-plex? And so whether or not you want to buy a 10-plex or 20 or 7, whatever, the number is irrelevant. This will apply to you. So let's talk about that. First of all, if you want to go step by step, it's going to be different for every person a little bit, but I'll give you just kind of a general, here's how I would approach it. First, step number 1 is to commit. I always say that. I say it on webinars every week if you come to the webinars. If not, you should sign up at biggerpockets.com/webinar. I do a live class every week. But I say that every week is the importance of commitment. And by saying, yes, I'm going to do this. Not that I want to do this, but I'm going to do this. So step number 1 is committed to, yes, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this happen. Step number 2 is going to be research. Now, research involves several things, including, number 1, you need to research the market. Where are you buying? Do you know what you're going to buy? Do you have the property in mind? Then research the neighborhood. And then even more than that, you need to research the actual investment you're doing. do you know what you're doing when you're buying a 10-unit property? That's a little bit of a jump, right, from nothing to 10 units. Now, maybe Brian has a lot more than 10 units, or maybe he's, this is old hat for him. I don't know. But my assumption is if you're doing nothing, you want to jump to a 10, you're going to need to know what you're getting into. And so obviously I recommend, biggerpockets.com. There's lots of information about everything in the world you can imagine on buying property, including a lot of articles on multifamily properties, because I'm a huge fan of multifamily, and so I talk about it kind of a lot. So so step number 1 was commit. Step number 2 is research. Step number 3 is going to be to do a quick analysis. So I'm assuming here that you already have the property picked out. So instead of screening through a lot of different properties, we're going to assume you already have one picked out, and you're going to need to do a quick analysis on it. Now, you don't have to go, you need to go in depth as you can, but you don't have to sit there and count every penny at this point. First, you want to see if it pencils out. And so, run the numbers through like a spreadsheet or a calculator like the BiggerPockets rental property calculator. Run the numbers through there, which you can get at biggerpockets.com/calc, C-A-L-C. Try it out, see what you think. If the numbers look decent, if they look good or close to good, then you can move forward to the next step. So that was step number 3, was a quick analysis. Step number 4, you need to focus on how you're going to buy the thing. How are you going to fund it? Now, you may want to focus on funding before before all this, maybe right after commitment is focus on funding, but I'll put it here because, I like it here. So, you need to know, how are you going to fund this deal? How will you pay for it? And so, there's a lot of different avenues for doing that. Obviously, you could use your own cash. You could do a 20% down payment, 30% down payment. Now, on a 10-plex, like this property, a 10-unit, you're likely going to have to use a commercial loan department of a bank if you're going to go with a bank, or you could use maybe private money, or you could use hard money essentially. It's all pretty the same at that point, but you're definitely in the commercial lending side of things. Anything 5-unit and up is going to be commercial. So keep that in mind. And then you're going to do your, funding. You want to make sure you got that lined up. And, if you are not sure how to do the funding, obviously you need to do some research. There's a lot of information on BiggerPockets about that. I wrote a book on investing with no and low money down. You can get it at biggerpockets.com/no money. Or just, really just all across BiggerPockets are articles and everything you'd ever need to know. You can just search for free on how to find, how to fund your property. So make sure you do the research on that as well. After that, after you got your funding lined up and you know what you're going to do, now it's time to do an in-depth analysis, like much more in-depth. And for a 10-plex, you're going to need to look at every unit and know exactly how much money they're bringing in. You're going to want to probably verify all those numbers and make sure that the seller isn't being a little bit overly optimistic. You're going to look at tax returns. You're going to want to plug all those numbers into a calculator or do them very, very carefully. Make sure you have them all lined up correctly. And make sure you're conservative. Like if you're not sure if the water bill is going to be $200 or $300 a month, guess it's going to be $300 a month. I mean, be conservative. It's better later on to be like, oh, good, the property's doing better than I thought, than, oh, shoot, that's not cool. So make sure you do that. Do a real in-depth analysis and get all the numbers you can, including things like vacancy, maintenance, CapEx, repairs, all those things. Make sure you include all that in your analysis. Next, you're going to want to do some kind of proposal. You want to, present it to the bank officially. Now, this is a little bit different than the funding I talked about earlier. Earlier, we just kind of talked about getting it lined up. Now you need to officially apply for the loan, get the loan approved through the underwriters. They're going to come look at it. And obviously, somewhere in this process, I guess I kind of skipped over this, but you need to get the property under contract. And again, I'm kind of assuming that you did that in the process. Like, the property, you made an offer, it got accepted. That's probably back up right before funding, the first funding we talked about, or somewhere around there. Anyway, so then we got a proposal. You're going to go to the bank and say, look, this is the deal I'm trying to put together. Will you fund this? They say yes or no. And if you're, if you put together a real good proposal and the numbers are solid and your credit's good and all that, you shouldn't have a major, hopefully not have a major problem. If you do, there's a lot of other ways to finance than a bank, but that's kind of the next step. And then after that, you're going to go into your due diligence period. And that is when you really want to dive in even more on the analysis, really make sure everything's perfect. I mean, like actually review their leases, look at all the leases, make sure that they are the way they're supposed to be. Hire a property inspector to go through the property, look at every square inch, make sure you know what you're buying. And really do your homework on that. And then finally, after you're convinced everything's good, the funding's good, everything's lined up, you'll close on the property and you'll be the brand new owner of a 10-unit or whatever multifamily property. And then you got to decide, are you going to use, probably decide before that, but you need to get property management lined up. You need to make sure you get the tenants all turned over so they're paying you and not somebody else, and you take over from that point. So I know if you're brand new to this, it probably seems overwhelming. Like that's a lot of stuff to learn. But trust me, it's not actually that complicated once you've done it. Like, real estate is not a horribly complicated process. So, if you're nervous, if you're scared, that's okay. Maybe consider partnering with somebody on your first one. Stick close to BiggerPockets, hang out in the forums, learn whatever you can there, and you're going to do just fine. So stick close to BP. We'll help you get where you want to get. Before we get out of here, let me read today's success quote of the day, and it comes from Charlotte Bunch, who said, "We do not need, and indeed never will have, all the answers before we act. It is often through taking action that we can discover some of them." And so in other words, we don't always know enough to, what we think we want to learn and what we want to know about a process. But just by taking action, you will learn those things. It's kind of like that fog analogy I used a few episodes ago here on the podcast about when you're driving through fog, you can't always see hundreds of feet in front of you. But when you get down the road, you'll be able to always see a little bit further. Same concept, and I think it's pretty valuable. Before I go, I do want to also say, if you have not yet listened to yesterday's episode of the Ask BP podcast, I highly recommend it. Probably my favorite 20-minute video I've ever recorded in my life. Life-changing. A lot of people have said that. Very, very important stuff. So check it out. BiggerPockets.com/AskBP039 should get you there. And that's pretty much it. So remember, in pursuit of your goals, dreams, and ambitions, and whatever you're trying to do in life, whether real estate or whatever, don't just learn, don't just, consume, but get out there, take action, and make it happen. So thank you guys so much for being part of the Ask BP podcast. If you've not yet left me a rating or review, please take a minute and do that. I'm really, really, really appreciate it. It helps other people be able to find the show, and every single one definitely helps. So with that, I will get out of here for the Ask BP podcast. My name is Brandon, signing off.
You've just heard another episode of the BiggerPockets Ask BP podcast. Submit your question today on Facebook, Twitter, or the BiggerPockets forum by using hashtag AskBP. And for more incredible real estate investing tools and education, including a free download of our book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, head over to BiggerPockets.com and sign up for your free account today. We'll see you on the next show.